Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome to the Demon Land podcast. Once again, as you probably gathered, I'm not Andy, but George. Andy, unfortunately, is still ill and hopefully is not out of action for too long. A big thank you, firstly, to all those Demon Lands who have passed on their best wishes for his speedy recovery on the thread on Demon Land. So get well soon, Andy, and even the team did their best they could for you this week to overcome your MFC SS. Joining me tonight is Ben Man. Good evening, Ben Man.
Good evening, George. Good evening, Andy. Hopefully you're listening to this, although it's not live when you listen to the recording. So get well soon. So we keep winning in your absence. Hopefully that's not a trend. Good evening and good afternoon and whatever time you happen to be listening to this, to all the Demon Landers. Geez, up and about. What a win, George. What a win. What a win.
What a win indeed. We'll talk about that just shortly. I was talking to Bin Man just before this game. I thought it was one of the best games of AFL football that I have ever seen in terms of a spectacle, and not just because Melbourne won, but it was just a brilliant spectacle. So this week, just for a small change, we'll talk about a few of the comments that have been put on the podcast thread. And I'll go through a couple of those for a start, just to give us a bit of background to what people were feeling. I'm sure they still feel that way. Firstly, from Sam D. Just want to give a massive shout out to every D's fan that went along and made some noise. You made all the difference today, letting the umpires hear it when they stuffed up and getting really loud in the fourth. It was very noticeable on the TV, and even the commentators made mention that it was an amazing crowd. Well done, everyone who went. From Go Lordy, those boat anchors in the outer went a bit early with their Freo chant. It was egg on face time at the end of the quarter. What say what? Ask, is that the highest quality game of the year? The only other one I can recall played with such skill and pressure is our win earlier in the year over the Bears. Old D, hang in there, Old D, but this shows you how much this game meant to some people. I was there. I've been to a lot of games played by the MFC. Sadly, a very large number were terrible, trudging home after a loss in a game that was over at quarter time. But none of that this year, and today was just the top of the lot. I sat next to a lady all done up in her dress gear. We both jumped in the air and hugged when the siren went. I had made the decision that this year was going to be my last for attending matches. The ageing process is getting to me. However, to see the crowd today and how the players responded has changed my mind. One more year in the Northern Stand. Go D's. And from Monocular, what an amazing, gritty, come from behind several times victory. I cannot recall any game so emotionally exhilarating. Ups and downs, but never say die. Crowd noise was just crazy, especially as we fought back in the fourth. Finally, from D-Star9, first time in a long time the MCC was fully engaged and making a lot of noise. It was so good. So, Bin Man, your thoughts about the game?
I read that post by Old D on Demon Land, and it actually, I found it really a moving post, and so it's great that you highlighted it, George. And it sort of almost brought a tear to my eye. And he's a long-time Demon Land poster, and he goes up and down in terms of his positivity levels. But I think, but he hit the nail on the head of a thought that I had coming home. And my partner's from Germany, and she's not into footy at all. She doesn't get it at all, and I think she finds my sort of passion for it somewhat strange. So. And I was trying to sort of explain to her, and it was a bit like I couldn't believe how excited I was. I couldn't believe how much how I felt during and afterwards, directly afterwards. I had people. It was it was one of those matches that came up to the bar. Very few games in. I've been attending Melbourne footy matches for over 50 years, and very few times, like there'd be a handful of times, maybe 10, 15 times where strangers are hugging each other. And it went over that bar, didn't it, George? Just exactly like Old D mentioned, like hugging people, high-fiving people. It was I was fist pumping people on the train. Melbourne fans. It was something else. It was something else, George. It was such a it was, I don't know, it was not just how well we played, not just how well, to be honest, how well Freo played. It was also the nature of the game, that back and forward, the pulling back and forward, the sort of momentum, like both teams wouldn't allow the other team to get too far ahead. It was a bit like, I don't know, I love my analogies. In those long distance sort of 10,000 metre races, they let the head runner get out in front of the peloton and they drag them back and they come back, and it was just brutal physical game, full of highlights. That mark below of Langford, it was right below me. That reminded me of one of the things when I was a kid that I still in my mind's eye, that mark that a Richmond player, Roach took, where he got up and he was almost laying on the pack. It was one of those pack marks that are, just had everything. It had everything, high skill, high energy. And I don't know about you, George, but I think that there was something else there. There was I shout out to every single Melbourne fan who attended, because I have no doubt at all, as I said to you before we started recording today, that was a massive factor in how we played and the result, because it felt like, and I heard King basically say this, is the players were feeding off that energy. When Pets kicked that goal late in, I think, must have been the last quarter, it was in the goal square, maybe it was even earlier than that. He was, really pumping the crowd up and, waving the crowd when it was something else. Well, yeah. What are your thoughts?
I mentioned this to Ben Man before. Apart from the fact that Melbourne won, what impressed me was I thought this was the best game of AFL football that I have ever seen, and I've been watching the footy for 50 years as well. It had absolutely everything. Compared to some of the other rubbish that old D's talked about, but even some of the other rubbish that was served up by other teams in this round, this had absolutely everything. You had two teams playing finals level football for a start off. You had the two premier ruckmen in the competition fighting it out tooth and nail every single time. One would get on top and then the other would get on top. It just didn't stop for the whole game. Fremantle led by 2 to 3 goals in every single quarter.
Twice in the last quarter.
And
we got out to a 15-point lead twice in the last quarter.
Yeah, and each and every time we pegged them back. Just when you think that the game's over, it certainly was. The extraordinary accuracy from Fremantle in goal kicking. They kicked 11 goals straight at one stage. Nobody does that. Yeah, it was just extraordinary. I don't know that there's ever been a game where two teams, where there hasn't been a complete blowout by one side over the other, where two teams are competing and one side kicks 11 goals straight. 21 goals in the first half. It was just extraordinary, followed up by another 13 in the second half. And then we followed up, even though our kicking mightn't have been as accurate. It was pretty hard to be more accurate than that. But the extraordinary highlight goals that came from people like Sharp and Cozzy, that soccer goal of Sharp's was just something
both soccer goals were.
You just don't see in football of that level. We mentioned the high mark by Langford, probably going to be one of the mark of the year contenders. Petty's marking and critical marking, particularly in that last quarter.
And just his energy too. Just his physicality, his want for the contest. I mean, he didn't even have a particularly highly rated game, but it was one of those games where the ratings don't reflect his impact on the game. His energy he gave that game. I mean,
when we've talked about the goals come from, in Fremantle's case, from their forwards, but nobody takes pack marks in forward lines except for Petty this week. It was an extraordinary effort. The pressure that was just constant from both sides. But it wasn't just the pressure, it was the lack of turnovers.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. That's incredible.
Every time somebody, it didn't matter which side it was, every time they had the ball, they seemed to deliver the ball in one way, shape or form.
Just on that, George, the lack of turnovers was, and I've actually got a note to specifically discuss the number of turnovers. The lack of turnovers was more remarkable because of the pressure.
Yeah,
Normally, it's
yeah,
in games of that level, of that intensity, both in terms of the atmosphere, but I've got the pressure numbers I'll speak to in a second, the stats file, a genuinely high pressure contest. Normally, that's exactly when you get a whole heap of turnovers
yeah.
because it gets into contest. And I actually think that, I won't jump the thing, but yeah, it was the lack of turnovers was crazy. And I mean, to the list of any number, we could pick out any number. For me, almost the symbolic goal of the game for almost our entire season, but how well the way we play and the heart in which we do it, and the sort of focus on winning the contest was the goal Cozzy got where the ball was bobbling around in the forward line and he just would not let it go. The ball looked like it was going to sort of get free, and I forget the Freo player was going to sort of be able to collect it and go, and he just reached out, did enough to somehow move it back towards him and then get up in a flash and then have the skill to just drill it for a moment. I know he was directly in front. It was one of the most inspiring bits of football. It was incredible. I mean, there was any number of other examples. Was that goal set up by there was a goal where that was really set up. No, it was that goal. It was exactly that goal was set up by Windsor, who won a contest where he had no right to win the contest in the forward pocket and kicked it back in to that territory where Cos ultimately won that ball and got that goal. It was two bits of manic desire to win the contest, which to me summed up our whole day.
Yeah, it was something to watch. And just one final thing about turnovers. Thank goodness for Mason Cox and his turnover. That was delightful to watch, and I'm sure Bailey Laurie fully appreciated the pass.
Yes.
But yeah, again, back to the fans, 41,000 screaming fans in that game, and it just went for the whole game. It was something really to behold.
And now I've asked you this last week, but the Cats game. What was you looking from where you sit on the opposite side of the members stand? What did it look like looking towards the members bay?
Yeah, I was at the start of the game. I didn't think there was going to be a big turn up, but they certainly filled it out pretty well. But even the Fremantle fans, I was surprised in front of us and below us, reserve seatings, compared to the Geelong game. The bay was absolutely chockers with Freo fans. I was surprised by the number who were there. But the MCC members certainly turned up, and the only time you ever see them turn up in greater numbers is usually in finals when Melbourne's playing. But there was a good contingent there, and there was fabulous. 41,000 on a 1:00 Saturday game these days isn't the best of times. People have got all sorts of things going on, but we turned up for this game.
And there's no doubt in my mind, now I can't remember if I said this already on this podcast or before we started recording it, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but no doubt in my mind whatsoever, it was a major factor in us winning that game of footy. I have no doubt. And it's hilarious with the umpiring because someone asked me at half time, what do you think the free kick count is? And I thought, we'll be 5 or 6 down. We were 4 or 5 up at half time. We ended up with a remarkable, I think it was 29-19 or something. A huge number of free kicks were paid. We had a pretty good run with the umpire, it must be said, but you wouldn't think that from all of the sort of booing and the where I was sitting. I was in a Melbourne bay, and right next to me, the Melbourne Footy Club had obviously sold that bay to Freo fans, so it was big bay of Freo fans right next to me. And on the other side of that bay was more Melbourne fans. So, they were up and about a little bit, but they could never really, they got the Dockers thing going at some stage, but they never got beyond that sort of 18, 19 point zone.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help myself at the end because one of the things that really got my goat in the lead up to this game, and I promise you that I have no doubt whatsoever. One of the things I love about King is that for all his transparency, all that stuff that I love, he's a hard-edged fella. He's a heart and would have absolutely said to them, what they're talking about, Freo, they're talking about this as a dress rehearsal. How disrespectful is that? They're coming across the country. They're playing on our patch, on our fortress, at our home ground, and they're going to give the palaver about this being a dress rehearsal. Well, it was a dress rehearsal for. There's a question about that. Maybe it's a dress rehearsal, but not for the team that the pundits thought it would be for. And I actually think that was a factor in the win. Even that talk, even that discussion. It's like, well, a dress rehearsal is not how you approach a game where you want to win it. So an amazing day at the footy, an amazing performance. Could not have been more proud of my footy club. And as you said, it was just, leaving all that aside, it was just an incredible thing to watch. And if you were gonna sort of promote Australian rules football to someone overseas or whoever, you'd give it. So just watch that game and come back and let's see what the most exciting sport in the world is. And it was just amazing game of it was amazing sporting experience, and it was just amazing game of footy.
Certainly was. Well, let's move on to the stats files. So, Binman, it's over to you to give us an insight into what was going on in the game.
Wow. So just wow. I could, you could probably guess, George. I could talk to this for a long time, but I won't. So player ratings. Number one. Do you know who the number one highest rated player is, George?
For this game, it's a lot to pick from, but
it's a lot to pick from.
Yeah.
Who would you guess?
Cozzy or Colt, I think, was. I really had a lot of. I would be giving Colt a lot of credit for the way he was involved in the game so much, but unfortunately he's down the back line, so he doesn't get much in terms of goal assists.
Yep. So, and I mean the other one people would probably point to is Maxi, and Maxi. Spoiler alert: he was our third highest rated player, 17.3. Winning the ball 7.8 and using the ball 3.6. His ball use has improved the last couple of weeks. So our best player, highest rated player for the game was Harry Sharp. Amazing. And I don't know, have the coaches' votes come out? It'll be interesting.
I haven't seen them, no.
So he had 22.8 player rating points. Now, I say this every week, I guess, but 20 is considered an All-Australian elite game of AFL football. 22.8, quarter one, 2.9 points, quarter two, 7.1 points, 4.7 in the third. And when the game had to be won, he stood up 8 player rating points in the last quarter. A reminder that player rating points, which is why I love them, are all about measuring scoreboard impact. Incredible. His ball use was extraordinary. So of his 22.8 player rating points, 16.5 of them were earned by how he used the footy. That's how impactful he was. There was no one who even close. So I haven't got the Freo numbers in front of me, but the next best Melbourne player for equity points for ball use was Sparrow, 10.4, compared to Harry Sharp's 16.5. Incredible. So obviously that kick, for example, that kick from 65, almost 70 metres, he would have got a huge amount of points because the probability of a score from that kick was low. So he would have got a huge amount of points for that. Incredible. So he was our highest rated player, best game of his AFL career, best game at Melbourne Footy Club, 84% time on ground. Huge work, Harry Sharp. Amazing, really. Tommy Sparrow, 17.8. Geez, I hope he stays, George. 17.8. He stood up in the furnace. He was awesome in the first half. So he got most of his points in that first half. 77% time on ground. Maxi Gawn, as you say, what a just absolute honour to see Max Gawn versus Jackson, the two best ruckmen, I think, at the moment running around, slightly different styles. I just got to applaud Jackson sometimes. He is just incredible, isn't he?
His athleticism is just astounding.
It's astounding.
Yeah.
And he's got big. He's a big lad. And his ability to run with that front, like how big he is incredible. And it was amazing to watch, and I think that it was level really until the last quarter, and that's reflected in terms of the performance. He played brilliantly, Jackson. Max Gawn had 17.3, 7.9 of those points, so almost half of his points were accrued in the last quarter when he did not leave the ground. So he had 84% time on ground, so they actually rested him quite a bit in the third quarter. He did not leave the ground in the last quarter, which is incredible. Harvey Langford was our fourth highest rated player. Just incredible. 14.3. I've said this a few times. He's the sort of player who racks up possessions when you don't realise it, but he was so damaging, so exciting to watch. Pity he couldn't slot that goal. Thought he was going to get it, the one on the members' side. He shapes that ball beautifully normally. Fantastic performance by Harvey. Jake Bowie, such a leader of down back. He's barely put a foot wrong since he's come back into this side. He was our fifth highest rated player, 13.7. And then finally, huge shout out. It was quite funny. This player, as is often the case, I have to say, when I go to the footy, I really, really dislike when Melbourne fans knock players. You only really frustrates me. And people were getting stuck into this fella, and I yelled something out. And from that point, he went bananas. And it's my boy, Bill Laurie. 6 in the first quarter was massive for our game. He had 6 player rating points in the first quarter. He was our 6th highest rated player. He had 13.1 rating points for the game. I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure that's his highest rated game of footy. Only 65% game time. He won the ball. So for a ball user, his predominant half of his points, 7.6, were for how he won the footy, for winning the footy. And so fantastic performance from him. He was huge in the first half. 13.1 player rating points. 11.8 of them were in the first half. And I was saying before to my mate at the ground, the key is that we go in at level or roundabout level at the end of the first quarter. If we do, we're in this match right up to our ears. So, and sort of also similarly at the halfway point. So he was huge in our ability to do that. Really interesting thing about how of the player rating points here is there were no negatives. So in the last couple of weeks, I've said who our bottom 3 players are. They're in the negatives. Our lowest rated player was Jeffo. He hit 2.3, and 2.3, it's not a great game of footy, but it's not a disaster. Salo was second lowest, 2.8. Caleb Windsor was 2.9. So did some nice things, but that's a low player rating points, in large part because he didn't use the ball very well. 0.7 of his points were for rating point for how he used the footy. Expected scores, you mentioned, and so did King in his post-match presser, and it just shows I love King. He's a stats man. He talks about stats. Clearly, he's invested in stats. I know he is. I've heard him talk about this very point when I've seen him speak at a function. He talked about expected score in the post-match presser, that it was raised at halftime with the players. We're right in this, and we were. So our expected score was 105.5. Our actual was 113. So our accuracy was awesome, just not as good as theirs. Their expected score was 90. They scored 109. So on expected score, we win that by nearly 16 points, nearly 3 goals. We win by 4 in reality, in actual. In my preview pod, I got a lot right. Got some wrong. My review of my preview is that I got pretty close to nailing this game. So to be honest, I'm pretty happy with how I thought forward about this game. One of the things I did get wrong was that I said that if we win this game, we'll go into $1.50 to make top 6. It's a huge game for us. After our win over the Suns, we got out. We were at 220. We drifted out to 325 to make the top 6 after we got beaten by the Cats. We came into 220 after we beat the Suns. I predicted that we'd come into $1.50 if we win this game against Freo. I got it wrong. We're into $1.36 to make the top 6. That's Winks level to make the top 6. Now we're $3 to make the top 4. It's getting real, George. It's getting real. That's the market. The market doesn't muck around with that stuff. So I got that wrong. Key players for the game I thought would be coming in were Sarong, Brayshaw, Jackson, Tracy, Bolton, Luke Ryan, with honourable mentions to Cox, Amos and Hayden Young. I got one thing wrong with that. It was an oversight on my part. I missed Murphy Reid, who is a fantastic fullback. It's funny I missed him because I love the way he plays. I love his sort of high footy IQ, and he's second for Dockers for score involvement, so 7.3 per game. Number one for them in score involvements.
Ooh, given that Amos has got 5, but. Bolton, I would have thought was their best for the day.
Oh no, for the season. So for the season, this is for the season. So I would guess Bolton 2 or one of those forwards. Or their number one player for score involvement is Jackson.
Yeah,
he averages 7.7 score involvements per game. Murphy Reid second, 7.3. To be fair to me, his player rating this season actually doesn't jump out. His player rating this season is 10.8. By way of contrast, Rivers for us is 10.7. So, he's around that middle, but he is like a high in score involvement player, and he is a super skilled player. He's a terrific young player. The reason I raise him is because I didn't mention before you did Colt's job. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you saw his performance? He got 10 player rating points at Colt, but what was your thoughts about his game?
What really struck me about Colt's game was when I watched the replays, the number of times that he was involved in either extracting the ball out of the defensive lines or making sure that he was there to assist others. He was just involved in the game all the while and spent a very good amount of that time on Murphy Reid, which is a hard task in itself. So this is what we're talking about at the start of this. It was just a great competition all day, seeing 2 young studs going at this for the whole game, 2 highly skilled young studs going at it. It was just great to watch. But absolutely impressed with the way Colt went about everything that he did in this game.
Totally. And I guess this is, one of the things, player ratings, one of the things I like about him is because they provide an objective way to compare week to week, but what they don't necessarily pick up is influence. So Maxi, I don't know what the coaching votes is. He easily could have got the 10 coaches votes because of you could argue he doesn't play that last quarter as well as he did. We don't win. Colt equally shutting down Reid doesn't get that many points for doing so in terms of scoreboard impact, but he was awesome. I thought his ball use wasn't as good as it normally is in some respects, but I love the fact like I said a few weeks ago when I was pumping him up, he takes a beat sometimes. He's got that skill of the very best players to not immediately kick it or handball it. Like he's just that half second where you see it in basketball, don't you, where the really good players like that mini pause before he does. And he did that a number of times where he got us out of trouble. He's really becoming a real leader. I heard him interviewed on, I think it was 3AW. It's well worth listening to. You can hear it on the podcast now. I'll have them all split out. And if 3AW is football, if you're listening to this and want to hear that, he's a smart young man, and it's a really, really interesting, none of the larrikin-y sort of stuff. It's a really interesting insight. They ask him about his yapping, and he says that, basically King says, be yourself, and that's who he is, and so really, I agree. I really, really impressed with his game. Similarly, Trent Rivers, I was really impressed with. He had a sort of similar, not as he wasn't close checking anyone, but I thought he made some really good decisions, and his rating was 9.8, but 5.4 of which was in the last quarter. So the keys to winning in terms of, for my preview, I said were, first of all, we had to capitalise on momentum, and we had to reduce Freo's ability to capitalise on momentum. And I think we did that really, really well. Both those things. We kicked our goals when we had our chances, just looking at the goal things, and they did. And we didn't let them kick more than 4 in a row. Now that sounds a lot, but I made the point on the preview podcast that the nature of footy at the moment, and in particular the way the best teams are playing, in particular Freo and Melbourne, is it's not about getting to a total score. It's about ability to score quickly in bursts. And that's what really does the damage, both in terms of making sure that you can take advantage of the momentum, but also dragging yourself back into a game when you've lost momentum. We did it brilliantly. The score never got out. Our lead never got out beyond, I'm just looking here. So most we led by at any stage was 10. So we got it out to 10 points in the third quarter. And the most they ever got it out to was, I think 19.
Yeah, 3 goals.
Yeah. So, but then twice in the last quarter. So that resilience. So I thought we did a really brilliant job in both those spaces, capitalising on momentum when we got it. You can't get a score of 113 without doing so, and reducing their ability to capitalise on momentum when they got it. Because there was a few times where, I don't know about you, where it felt like, oh God, they're 1 goal away from snapping us. It felt like if they get to 24 points, 25 points, we're in a world of trouble here. So I thought they did, Melbourne did, the D's did great in both those spaces, capitalising on our momentum and reducing them doing so when they had it. Second one I said was key was winning the centre clearances and stoppage battle totals in the raw totals and the scores from. I said this will be absolutely critical given it's an area of strength of ours, but it's also massively huge for them. They're amazing. Their numbers, like they're the best clearance and stoppage side in the AFL. And as you mentioned, what a just mouth-watering pre-game it was, the sort of idea of Jackson versus Gawn. It was even better live, wasn't it? It was something, it was something else to watch. And it is remarkable we won this game of footy with these numbers. So for total clearances, they were plus 11. We had 11 less clearances for the day. These are raw numbers. We had the same number of centre clearances, 17 apiece. So it was 32 to 43 total clearances, 17 apiece centre clearances. Stoppage clearances, we were down 11. They were plus 11, 15 to 26 for around the ground winning stoppage clearances. They had first possession 6 more times than us, and they turned that into a clearance percentage. Their clearance percentage was, after first possession, was slightly higher than us. So they won the ruck battle and clearance battle and stoppage battle just on the raw totals. They also won it on score, George. It's amazing. Like, we don't win many games of footy when we aren't in the positive scores from stoppages. So in this game, the big one everyone was raving about and it was gorgeous to watch. It was amazing. We're back to our very best out of the centre. We scored 33 from centre bounce, which is brilliant. Our season average is 14.4. They scored 18. So against us, we're giving up on average 12. So they were still impressive. But the big one was stoppage other. So like around the ground stoppages or the non-centre bounce stoppages. We only scored 21 points. We're averaging 25.4 this season from stoppages. They scored 44 points, George, from stoppages. That's amazing, incredible. We're only giving up 24, so not far off double. Freo scored almost double what teams score against just on average for stoppages. Normally that's a recipe for we lose for sure. So what was that? So all in all, the score centre bounces, we were plus 15 and they were 23. So they were plus 8 for scores from stoppages. So they won the raw number and they won the scores from stoppages. Generally, we're going to lose games of footy when we have those numbers. The second to last one was winning the contest and pressure battle, and this is, the last two I think is where, arguably I think we won the game. We comprehensively won the pressure and contest battle. We smashed them. We were plus 24 for contested possessions for the game, and it's worth noting we set that up early. We were plus 14 contested possessions in the first quarter, so plus 10 from then on, but we really came out just breathing fire and smashed them in the contest. And we were plus 19 for ground ball gets, which is a massive big tick for us, but that's a hugely important stat generally, but particularly for these two sides, because we both play a very similar form of footy, which is get it long to a contest. It comes to ground, you win the ground ball. That's really, in a nutshell, both Freo and Melbourne's sort of DNA. We won ground balls by 19 in this game. But the big ticket item in the contest space, the big one, really the defining one, was we smashed them post-clearance. And I think this was a big factor in the low number of turnovers. No small feat for smashing them post-clearances, because Freo averaged 5.3 more post-clearance contested possessions than their opponents this season, number 1 in the AFL. So they're the best post-clearance ground ball team in the AFL. We were plus 34, a remarkable plus 34 for post-clearance contested possessions, and it's worth digging into them. Such were their significance in the result. So hard ball gets, plus 4 for hard ball gets, 13 to 9. Loose ball gets, 49 to 29, and that's all about the running power, all about the swarm, just like I talked about against, I think it was North, where we were beating them to the loose ball. The ball's out in dispute. it's in contest, loose ball get. We were beating them routinely. Plus 20 for loose ball gets. I would think would just be about our season high for loose ball gets. We had 6 less contested marks than them. Their contested marking was unbelievable, wasn't it? Really fantastic. We had 3 more contested knock-ons, and when you think of, I think of stats as a descriptor of what happened, not just isolated stats. So when you think of contested knock-on, it's all those times we smash the ball forward instead of taking it and just get it forward. We did that 3 more times than them. A weird one for this stat was a post clearance, a free 4, 21-8. So we were plus 13 for frees, and I think part of that was because we were swarming to the contest and we were getting to the ball first, and we were the one getting pushed in the back or getting high. So finally, in the pressure stuff, the pressure ratings was awesome. For the match, we were plus 985 to 186. The season average this year across the ASL is 176. So 185 to 176. The big one was the last quarter, or the second half. So first quarter, 184 to 177. We came out fire. They matched us 183 in the second. Second half, we came out breathing fire, George. 190 in the third quarter. They were only 172, so we're plus 18. 183 to 173 in the last. We wanted the footy more. I kept on yelling that out. Who wants it? We want it. We wanted the footy more, and that was so evident. So often we won 50-50 contests because we wanted it more. Top 5 pressure players. Cozzy Pickett had his best pressure game for ages. His season average is 42.1. His pressure points in this game were 58. Joel Fitzgerald was awesome pressure-wise. He's the second highest pressured rater. Jack Steele, Kay Chandler was 5th. And I just wanted to highlight Harvey Langford, who's not known for his pressure. He averages 21.6 pressure points this season in a big game. Biggest game for us for this season. He was our 4th highest rated pressure, 14 pressure acts, 41 pressure points. Well done, Harvey. Stood up when it needed to be. That segues into what the defining battle for me was the key to the winning. That's what I said in my preview. The absolute key was to win the turnover battle. We needed to at least match them from scores from turnover. They scored 71 points on turnover in our round 2 loss, plus 33. To do so, we obviously needed to score more on turnover, and we needed to do a better job of defending turnover. And that's what we did. We scored 59 points on turnover. They scored 46, season average 53.2. That's a crazy low number of turnovers. The average score from turnovers is approximately, I think, across the AFL was 60 to 65, something like that. So amazing. Given, we've given up 101 and 60 odd to Suns last week. 80 if you average the 2 weeks. Only 46 in this game. That's where we won the game. So as I said, it predicted that in my preview that was the ultimate, to me, the number one thing we needed to do. And we did. We were plus 13 for scores from turnover. We won the game by 4 or 5 points. We won the game on expected score by 15. I'd argue that the critical thing was that winning that turnover. And part of that was our swarm, our running. Shout out quickly to our defence. Our defence was unbelievably effective, I thought. Of course, they were a big factor in defending turnover, but that's an all-team task, really. They were brilliant, particularly given Howes was out. Freo were by far the best in the business at intercepts, by far, but we smashed them for total intercepts and almost matched them for intercept marks, and that's their one wood back in the back half. We were plus 14 for intercepts. They only had 2 more intercepts marks than us. We had 9 more tackles. We had 10 more tackles inside 50, and this one was amazing. We had bang on the same number of defensive one-on-one losses, 25%. That's fantastic, George, for a young defensive unit against the very best defensive unit in the AFL. And finally, a hat tip to Selwyn and the high performance team. Just awesome job, fellas. We were wound up for this game, physically ready. Our high performance program had clearly planned this to the minute. I thought we were for the Cats too. I think we were, and we ran out the game better than them. And really, the running power was the defining sort of feature of this game, I think, in terms of our ability to monster them. If you watch the replay, they kept talking about it. How often did Voss was great? I thought on the commentary. How often did we outnumber them at the contest? You paused at anything at stage. You had 3 or 4 people in the screen. We just outrun them. Got to the ball first. It was just a manic running performance, and the high performance program deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a question basically around that. The thing that struck me in this game was how refreshed we look. That after around 16 bye, where we were absolutely hitting the wall, I think the 9-day break that we got a couple of weeks ago has absolutely refreshed the team. And when you see, particularly in this game, the output from Cozzy, from Sharp, from Windsor, Fritter looks like he's just started
You're
again.
magnificent.
Petty, even Laurie, Langford, and Tolstrup. All these younger players, although there's Fritters and Petty's been around for a while, but all of a sudden, all these young guys who were really hitting the wall a couple of weeks ago were absolutely walking on water in this game.
Yeah. And I get that's exactly right, George. And you could see it, couldn't you? Like you could see it. And I check the as I do the AFL tracker data on AFL.com and the GPS. One of the things I like about that is that you can't argue with it. It's GPS. It is what it is. Like there's caveats on it to a degree, but total distance run, for instance, it was a really fascinating thing in this game, George. Is the total distance run, and it speaks to I think 2 forward half teams and also the low number of turnovers. That's a big factor as well. Was 276, right? Against, by way of contrast, when we played Sydney in that high octane back and forth game on a much smaller ground at the SCG, both teams ran over 300 kilometres. Against the Suns last week, both teams ran just under 300 kilometres. 25 kilometres in a game difference is unbelievable. And you're right, the high performance team had that, but the power running was incredible in this match. What was interesting is we had I talked about this on the preview pod. It's unbelievable. I'd forgotten all about this. We played Freo in round 2 off a 6-day break. They had a 7-day break. I didn't realise until I was preparing for the podcast. They had an 8-day break. We had a 6-day break. They had an 8-day break into this game. When I looked at the tracker numbers, it was pretty even. So we had the top, still, what's his name? Langer was the most. But their running numbers were pretty impressive. So it wasn't a fact that they ran out the game pretty well as well. I wonder, George, whether they'd obviously planned for this, but I'd heard that the boys were allowed to take a couple of days up at Brisbane, on the Gold Coast after the Gold Coast game last week. And on Demonland, a few people questioned that and criticised the club for, we've got a big game this week. What are they doing up there? I think it just shows a couple of things. The respect that King shows his players, the young players. Look, we trust you, and the trust to say you're not going to be silly. And I think, to be honest, it was a big factor in how fresh they were. Up at the surf, like you said, on Monday morning and, fly back Wednesday. And did you go to a training this week?
Not last week we did.
Before the Freo game?
Yeah, but it was only a quick session. There wasn't very much in. Yeah.
So I wonder whether they just didn't do, they to allow them to stay up there, basically have a mini break off with only a 6-day break between the games. I reckon that's hats off to the whole club and then to come in the right, they were switched on right from the get-go. And funnily enough, so were Freo. Freo were switched on right from the get-go. Just one final stat I haven't got the specific number. Freo have led at three-quarter time, I think 12 times this year and won 11 times. So they are one of the fittest side in the AFL. They run out the games better than anyone. They were front at halftime by, was it 8 points at three-quarter time, I should say? We're down at halftime and we're down at three-quarter time, and we ran out the game better. Massive, massive tick to our high-performance program. Does make me a little bit worried about the Port game backing up in terms of that, but at least we've got a 7-day break coming into that game.
Yep. Okay, let's move on to listener questions. Thanks again to everybody. So we'll start off with the first couple, which are based around the flag and finals. Wells 11 asks, can this team win the flag? I know it's a crazy question, but there it is. Doug Reamer asks, boys, do you think we have a bit of Hawthorn in 2008 about us, especially mixed in with exciting youth? Go Lordy asks, the question I'm asking is, can Stephen King emulate his mentor, Brad Scott, in his first season in charge at Melbourne? Demon WA asks, on paper, Xavier Lindsay, Viney, Howes, and maybe even Latrell are the types you'd love to see in the 23 for finals. But with only 2 games left and the team playing so well, I just can't see changes being made. So the question is, what changes do you want to see to the side come finals and why? few questions around the same themes. But Bin Man, can we do well in finals to get to a flag?
How about you go first on this one, George? I'll be interested to hear your.
Look. In all honesty, a couple of weeks ago, I thought we'd hit the wall, and weren't. You looked at the games ahead, particularly this one. Firstly, I don't think there were too many Demon fans would have expected us to be, vying for top six or even actually in top six at this time of the year. But boy, watching that game on the weekend, that was Freo we played against. They were top of the ladder by 3 games. They were 3 games clear of the ladder, and we've taken it up. Not only taken it up, we've beaten them in at the venue where the grand final will be played. So, looking at a couple of the other sides on the weekend, who are in the six, there were some ordinary performances in there, and on the day, you really don't know what could happen, and we're certainly in the right position at the moment.
So that's a yes.
We all hope for a yes.
Yeah. Well, the question specifically, because I'm a pedant, is not will from Wells 11, not will we win the flag, can we win the flag? We can.
Yeah.
Will we? I don't think we will. But we can. We can, absolutely can. So like 2008, no worries. There's a few. I mean, like our run in 2017, 2018. They did a couple of things this. One, exactly as I said, we beat the very best team. But so now, as I said, we're $1.36. So just think of them not as odds, but as probability. So we're very probable to make top 6. So that means that we're guaranteed, if we make top 6, we're guaranteed a home elimination final at the MCG, where we've won all bar 1 games. We've played what? So now it's 12 games and we've won 11. Is that right? Or 10?
10-1, I think it is. But
10-1. Yeah, 10-1. So we've got that, so that's huge. And if we were to win that, I'm not sure that what happens after that. But if in terms of where we get thrown, do we potentially play interstate? I'm not sure. But if there's a chance we finish top 4. Now, it's tough to go fourth against first, but one of the interesting things about this match is that it throws a bit of a wrinkle in Freo's onion, I reckon, because one of the clearest bits of evident data over the last 15 to 20 years is not always, but generally the premiership team wins most of their games in the lead up to finals. So they have a good run into finals. That's, and the last couple of years it's been, Lions have been past masters at that. So Sydney have dominated all season, and then the Lions have just sort of got their job done and then just taken it up a level, gone up a few gears as it comes in, and won their last 5 or 6. I think Geelong was similar last year, and that's the pattern. Adelaide, yeah, exactly. Yep. Melbourne, we won what? How many did we win when we won the flag in a row?
No, you'd need someone like Andy to help with that, but it was a sizable number.
Yeah, because we're a bit middling as well until the back half of the season. So my point being is that our profile is better than Freo's profile in that sense, because Freo now have lost the 1. They weren't particularly impressive against the Dogs, and they talked on the telecast, which I hadn't realised, that they had in the last 6 matches or something before today, the last 7 matches perhaps, maybe 5 of the last 6 or something like that, they've been behind at half time. Longmuir was asked about it in the pre-game interview he did on the G. And so it's not like they're in stunning form. Their scores 4 in the preview that I did. Their scores 4 in the last 5 games is only 86 or something. So they're not even scoring particularly heavy. They've got Crows next week, who have coming off. They lost, didn't they? Crows.
They won. They won against Richmond. They
won against Richmond. It was just. Yeah. And then they play. They played the Blues, the rampaging Blues, in the last game, and the Blues are up and about. So they're no easy game. And if they were to lose even one of those 2 games, it would mean that they've lost 2 of their 3 games coming into the final. So can we win it? We can, for sure. We are. I think King has said it. I believe him. our very best football, Demons football, is good enough to beat any team in this competition. Personally, I've talked about this all year. I don't rate Hawthorn at all. We thumped them twice. We've beaten Brisbane. We've now beaten Freo. I mean, Sydney, we got into a shootout and they were better than us on the day, but we were competitive with them. We still scored 120-odd points. Why wouldn't we think we can win this?
Yeah, indeed. A little bit more commentary around and questions around Freo. Melbourne.
Just before we go, the question, what do you think about the changes, like in terms of that question, on paper, XL, Viney, Howes and maybe Latrell are the types you'd love to see in the 23 finals with only 2 games left and the team playing so well, I just can't see changes being made. So the question is, what changes do you want to see to the side come finals? What's your thought on that?
I think at this stage, a lot's going to depend on the medical situations and the fitness situations. Certainly like to see Xavier Lindsay in there for his skills in particular. Whether given that it's not just him, Viney's in the same situation. When you spend an awful lot of time not able to run, even though you might have a reasonable sort of fitness base from last year in these cases, I think we're seeing it with Salo in the last 2 games that he's played, that you just can't come back after being 6 months off the track in the same way that you need to. So it's going to depend on who's fit and capable at the time. And it doesn't help when, as we spoke about last week, Casey have a bye, and
how pissed off with King about that.
There's no opportunity for the team or those individual players who might be pressing to be able to show their wares. If nothing else, you get an idea about where they're actually at. But I think a lot's going to come down to the fitness levels and the medical circumstances for the players.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really interesting question Demon WA poses, because there's 2 sides to the coin, is one of which you don't want to break what ain't fixed and don't want to disrupt things. And that seems to be the pattern generally when I talked before, is teams sort of get their settled 23 coming into the finals. So I can see why, that maybe that would sort of talk against making changes. But against that, like a point that I've made all season is that I think there's a misnomer about how we play footy in King's game plan. It's really not run and gun and all of that sexy ball movement stuff. It is blue collar, win the footy, win the contest, win the pressure battle. Number 1, that's it. That's the first piece of the puzzle. Then it's territory, get it forward, win the ground ball, swarm. But you can't play like we played every week. You can't play a game like that every week. That's why it was a special game, and that's a grand final day game. That's a preliminary final game. We've got gears, and I don't think I'll be really fascinated to see selection this week, but I actually don't think King will be adverse to making some changes this week to give some players, even like a Xavier Lindsay, back an opportunity to come back in, but even a Xavier Taylor to give him a taste, to bring in maybe to make some changes. That would go against the sort of normal pattern, which is that you keep your same 23 ahead of finals. But I just think we play so differently week in, week out. We don't do what Freo does. That's, I think, a weakness of Freo. They play one way all season, similarly with Swans. And when that way doesn't work, it's a bit like the criticism of Goody. Goody's game plan was always, we don't have a different way of playing. If the guts and determination contest doesn't work, well, what's next? Well, I think we've got multiple ways of playing. We can beat teams with transition footy. We can beat teams with ball movement footy. We can beat teams with forward half and just win the arm wrestle in the contest footy. So that's why I think Viney's a big chance of coming back in. I think they'll want Xavier Lindsay back in because, his skill is so sublime. I personally think Latrell will come back in too, because I think we'll need his run. It was interesting he didn't in this game, so it was a big call. So maybe he won't. I mean, who comes out is the question. And I think the other one is Howes 100% comes back in. In fact, I said last week after the injury that basically King or Butt said he would on 360. He said, he'll straight back in. And he talked about straight back into the wildcard finals. As I said on the podcast last week, if we're now very likely to be top 6, which means he gets another week's rest. So he comes back into the team for sure. So apart from that, I don't think they'll change our forward line at all. I think, so I think all of those players are a good chance of coming back in. I think Demon WA's hit it on the nail, his nail on the head. Actually, we'll get to selections later, but I actually think Heath is a chance of coming in this week, but not playing again after that. But yeah, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a bit.
Okay, just some questions around Freo. From Melbourne 2, Geelong looked a more adaptable side than Freo. The Cats changed it up at quarter time and took the game away. Freo didn't seem to adjust, just tried to play the same way, hence the neck and neck throughout. Is chaos and mauling pressure the antidote to precision? Are Freo too clinical, and when it breaks down, have too big a hit to their style? I think you spoke a little bit about that question just then, Bin Man, but...
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually disagree with that. What I thought was interesting in this game, in my preview, what was interesting about that defending, the question about how can we defend turnover better, that there was a big discussion about that on Demonland, triggered by comments by Daniel Hoyne on SEN in that full-on footy thingo he does, where he talked about it being a big issue for us. We were giving up on average 67 points on turnover to the top 8 sides, for instance. We'd averaged 101 against, it was 80 over the last 2 games or whatever. I thought he missed some things, one of which was the 6-day break against the Thingo. Hinkley was asked by Healy afterwards, after Thingo had finished, how he thinks that we might improve in that aspect of the game against Freo. And his response, which I agree with largely, was increase front half pressure, disrupt transition, getting key intercept defenders into prime position, structuring stoppage setups to block immediate turnover damage, and managing ball use aggression, not being so aggressive. I largely agree with them, and we did most of them, although we didn't manage our ball use aggression. We were pretty aggressive with how we used the ball. We just used it super well. I thought a big thing was a factor, in addition to, I thought we needed to disrupt their handball receives, and we did, and that was a big factor in not them not hurting us on turnover, I think, because we got up in their grill and we really made it difficult for them. They're the number 1 handball receive team in the AFL, and I thought we did a brilliant job. But the thing that I thought we'd do that we didn't, which was, and this is the question, goes to the question, is that I thought we'd need to control the tempo and slow the game down, because they're so damaging. They're so good, Freo, when you allow them on the outside, and when they get control of the tempo of the game, they just cut you up, which is they did in bursts. But to that question, they did it. We didn't ever go into control mode particularly, except for the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of the game, which was brilliant, I thought. So when it says Melbourne Man 2 says Freo didn't seem to adjust, just try to play the same way, hence the neck and neck throughout, is chaos and mauling pressure the antidote precision? Yes, it is the antidote to precision, no question. And it's the antidote to, it's also how you create turnovers. But Freo did adjust. They went into mega control mode. It was in fact them who went into control mode to try and slow us down. They had to find a way, Longmuir had to find a way to stop our dominance. We were killing them, and it just wasn't quite yet showing on the scoreboard, in large part because of their phenomenal accuracy. I mean, their kicking that goal was really, apart from the fact it was painful to watch, it was a joy to watch, wasn't it? Just from someone who loves kicking, and some of their kicking was just at goal, but field kicking as well was first class. They had to find a way to get this game back on their terms. And the way they did it was they did adjust, which was in second quarter and particularly the third quarter. They tried to control the ball. And we did a really good job in the third quarter of not allowing them to do so, to stopping them switch, not giving them the easy switch, which goes to your point about you can only do that if you're fresh and got the power to run across and block those easy spreads. So I actually think that they did adjust, and it just wasn't good enough. They still couldn't beat us. But the question about is chaos and mauling pressure the antidote precision? 100% is, I reckon. And that's why I don't rate Swans as a particularly big risk, because their model of handball meters gained and handball received, like Freo's, can come undone, I think, under pressure of finals. So
I'd say the same for Hawthorn, especially based on the result this week.
Yeah,
Brisbane just absolutely took them apart.
Yeah, with pressure, wasn't it?
With pressure. It
Yeah,
was just pressure.
good old-fashioned. That was a good game of footy to watch from. It was like an old-school game of footy, and that was one of my bets of the weekend because Brisbane were always going to do that at home on their home deck, and that's why I don't rate Hawthorn, is because I don't think their model stands up under the heat of finals. Ours does, and Frio's is an open question as to whether it does.
Talking about the score, Go Lordy asks, more scoring shots, more disposals, more inside 50s, better efficiency inside 50, more frees for once, more contested possessions, more tackles, more bounces. We didn't win clearances, but anyway, it's the secondary possession that's important. The question, why didn't we win by 5 goals?
Well, we won by 15 points on expected score. I mean, we could have won that. I thought we were the better team all day. They were their quality is amazing, isn't it? They are a seriously good football team with seriously talented footballers. And the answer is why we didn't win by 5 goals is Tracy can kick the ball dead straight from 65 metres. Yeah. Bolton can do the same. For Voss is a peanut, but that goal he kicked from 70 metres on the run was a complete deflator and heartbreak. Yeah. I mean, it was a solid bit of footy, wasn't it? I mean, like some of their players didn't even know that player Johnson. Is it Johnson? 30?
Yeah, Johnson. Yeah,
bloody hell! Bolton, as I mentioned, Sarong is just a star. He did something in that first quarter where he came through traffic. Brayshaw's a star who was down on the day. That's why we didn't win by 5 goals. Is just because they are stacked.
I think there's another simple reason is that. Amos kicks 5, Tracy kicks 2, Voss kicks 4, and I think they kicked 2 points between a whole lot of them. That for any other team in the competition, instead of kicking 11 goals straight, they probably kick 5 goals 6.
Yeah,
we would win by 5 goals.
Yeah,
their accuracy in front of goal quite literally kept them in the game the whole game.
It did, and also their field kick. Like, if we dominated terror, that's one of the things I should have said. So it was interesting, even though they won. I want to watch it again because I can't work it out. So if I'd said to you before, we're going to lose we're going to lose total number of clearances. We're going to lose in the total number of scores from those clearances and stoppage. And that their forwards are going to kick. What did you say? 11 goals between them.
11, yeah, 11.
2 of which they brought up their 50th goal for the season. Which was, if I'd said that to you before, 3 of their forwards are going to kick 11 goals, and we're going to lose stoppages, scores, and totals before the game. You go, well, we're going to get beaten by 50 points. So it's remarkable. One of the ways that we did that is that swarm, and we dominated territory. It was 60-40 basically. We smashed them for territory, and that's so rare to do so when you don't win the stoppage battle, because you win stoppage by, but King talked about it. He talked about, like, they're desperate for territory. So that's why we have more knock-ons than oppositions. Just get it forward, go straight. If you go on Demonland, listeners, and go to the stats file thread, Wheelo puts the stats file thread. Big shout out to Wheelo. He also tweets a chart, the score chart. And I looked at it this week, and it looks for amazing reading, and it really describes the game. It looks like 85 to 90% of our goals are from the corridor, literally in the corridor between 50-metre mark and the goal square. Theirs are or 80% of theirs are on an angle from sort of a 45-degree angle, which is what if you think about it, they kick a lot into space. And Voss was talking about how well their forward line works together. One leads up to the ball, one goes to the mid zone, one stays back, and that maybe helps explain it. But just showed how we play footy, which is in a straight line towards the goal. If you think about Sharp's goals that you mentioned, they were all because we were running straight line at the goal and running in chaos. So some of the numbers are nuts, but if we play like that against almost any other team, we win that game by 5 goals plus for sure.
Questions about the forwards. Go Lordy again. According to the AFL fantasy points, Wheelo's stats not available at the time of writing, Roy and Jeffo were our weakest contributors today. Do we even need tall forwards? D-Star9 asks, Bin Man, you're the stats man, but I watched JVR's running patterns, and many times he took two players away from the contest, allowing others to dominate. Jeffo also played a selfless game, allowing Petty to dominate. Am I imagining this? Cozzy, an incredibly selfless game, although dominated. I see a team who are so team-oriented that they sacrifice their games for the ultimate team game. And finally, another one from Go Lordy. Hi, Ben Man. When was the last time Frida kicked 2 goals, 5 behinds?
I don't know the answer to that question, but it can't be too often when they're such gilt-edged opportunities. Like, it was a funny thing because he's such a reliable kick, isn't he? And so, and a few of them were just normally, his bread and butter on an angle, and so that's partly why we didn't win by 5 goals. Partly that's that answer. The AFL fantasy points, that forget about it. Don't worry about it. They don't count anything. They're hopeless in terms of getting a sense of the game. Just, they're just accumulative. They don't tell you anything. It's really interesting though, George. I was actually thinking about you in terms of during the game about Roo and Jeffo. Is I thought exactly as D-Star said, they both play a very selfless game, but it's not so much selfless as I've been banging on about all season, is our game is fundamentally, apart from contest and defence and those things, it's based on running power. And every single player, which is why Heath wasn't selected in this side, every single player has to do 11 to 12 plus kilometres a game, and you can only carry one or two that can't do that at speed. And Jeffo, I was watching him a fair bit, and he's amazing athlete. He runs, his running patterns up, and so's Roo. Their running contributes to all team defense and all team offense in a way that's really hard to sort of even see unless you're watching them, because you're always following where the ball is, and even the television always follows where the ball is. But if you take a minute to watch the replay and see, if you can, how much running Jeffo does, for instance, and Roo, you get it, and the role that they play in blocking lanes. When I talked before about we did a great job stopping them, controlling the uncontested possession, uncontested marks. Well, that requires players to both run to a play where it's going to go, but more importantly, you never see it, run to the spot where they wanted to go, but you've run across and taken that option away. No one ever gives anyone a big tick for that sort of running, but that's the sort of running they do, and it's so critical to the game plan working. The thing that I was thinking about you about in Jeffo in terms of the sort of what you've talked about for ages is the key thing for the forwards is bringing the ball to ground, is not allowing the opponent to intercept. Their intercept game is the best in the AFL. We did brilliantly at stopping them dominating in that space. The other thing I thought, and this is the thing I was thinking about you, is I thought they both played all right. They were up against a seriously good defence. And, they got a bit of I don't mean this in a, I don't mean this in a negative way. They got a lesson in playing against the very best, and they kept working right to the end. So, I think they both played okay. And it was terrific that we won and were able to score 113 points despite our two key forwards and one of them only kicking 2 goals, Frida, not really dominating on the scoreboard, but they all played their role and worked super hard. What are your thoughts on them?
I wasn't impressed with Jeffo, and the fact I did watch it specifically. He only played 5 minutes in the last quarter. They took him off when the game was on the line. Yeah, it was another one of Jeffo almost games. Thank goodness for Petty with what he was doing in the forward line.
Yeah,
and it was just amazing. He was the one. If he wasn't marking it, he was competing in every single contest that was available. Roo was doing a lot of work up the ground. While he didn't score any goals in this game, he was up on the wing providing the options. He was tackling. He was in everything. Yep. So, once again, when you put someone like Roo in the ruck, you don't get the output that you do when he's not in the ruck. So, we'll wait and see for this week the way they play that.
That hasn't quite been the case in the last month, though. He's kicked bags of goals when he has been the second ruck. So
yeah,
I mean, they had pretty good bloody defenders on him, Brennan and Cox, and who's the other whacker down there like that? Yeah. So I thought the other thing about Jeffo is created 2 more goals this week. He's done it every week. He's created a goal where he's got that ability to get down low and get those half volleys off the ground and clean hands. He set up the one there, Steele, cooked across to Cos, and there was one in the first half. I thought he's got really good hands, and it'll be. I mean, going back to Demon WA's question, he's like the exemplar of that. Like, is he in the best 23? Do you change that? I don't think they'll change our forward line structure. Even I could take your point about him not playing many minutes in the last quarter. So that's interesting.
And the other problem that Jeff has got, he's had 10 possessions in total in the last 3 games.
Yeah, right.
He's.
You got to play your role pretty well. Fair call.
Yeah. Okay. The rucks. One of the biggest talking from Pates. One of the biggest talking points was whether we play 2 rucks against the Freo big men or run Max solo. Given the way we ran out the game, we definitely made the right call. With this in mind, do you think we've seen the last of the Moose for the season? This was sort of on the same lines with comments from Heath55 and Farmer about the same subject. So, Max Heath, in, out, or what?
Funnily enough, this, as I said before, is sort of foregrounded before. Funnily enough, I think he's a good chance of coming in this week, because the reason, and as much as anything, for them to be able to manage Max's time on ground. And so I could really see him getting selected this week purely because, and that goes to Demon WA's good question around about, well, do you risk breaking team synergy at this point of the season? I think they will, because, and give Maxi a chop out, but do so using time on ground and the bench. And the way to do that is to have Max Heath in the side. I was positive that they wouldn't select Max Heath in this game, and my argument was that you'd lose a runner if you do so. The counter argument to that is, well, that would be Salem, and the counter argument, or the sort of, I guess the point about that was saying, well, and it came up on Demoland a fair bit, is Sailor only played 36% game time. So what difference would have it been if Heath? And for me, I think that misses the trees for the woods, or the woods for the trees, or whatever that is, because Salo's part of a rotation of the small medium forwards. Laurie, Fritter, Sharp, Langford, Chin, Langdon, Cozzy also in that mix. And so his role is to give those players a chop out so that they can always, as most of the time as possible, be high impact and be able to cover the distance. If you watch the rotations and movement around stoppages and players handing over, one goes up high and the other one stays forward. They need to be able to be fresh and running in power. Even though Salo, even if he only played 30% time on ground, he allows those players to come off and recharge, which doesn't take them long. They only need a bit off the field to be able to get back to their powerful, impactful best. And then they can go back out and play that high impact burst footy. And it was exactly, that gives us the ability to score in bursts. Someone like Sharp, if you think about his running, he needs time off the bench in order to do that. It was a huge factor in our ability to outrun Freo in this game and finish the game stronger than them, I thought. So Salo, for instance, might have only had 36% time on ground. I think a big chunk of that was probably in the last quarter. But let's say, for the sake of argument, he only had 10% time on ground in the last. The power that he gives is a chop out, and it's key for running out the game. He was our highest average speed player and our highest average speed in defence, Salo. Now, the caveat on that is 36%. But when he came on the ground, he's running at speed, and he only needs to do it for a few minutes, because then we don't lose anything. We don't lose anything in that running power when Sharp comes off for him. So, I think, but getting back to the question about Heath, that's why Heath wasn't selected. We won't have we don't face the same issue this week against Port. They're not going to be able to get close to our running power. No chance. So they're a pretty solid team, and they've got a lot of, things that, but they're a contest in defense. They don't have anywhere near our athletic profile. So we can carry another tall this match, no probs. So I think Heath will come in for this, and then that will be his last game for the season is my tip. That's where I think in terms of Moose, and maybe even looking at bringing Kentfield in for, Jefferson. I don't know. What do you think about Moose and what he looks like for the rest of the season?
I think in this game, because he wasn't playing, so we don't know what it would have been like if he was in the side. But I think we got away with one in this game.
I can't agree, John.
Mac,
Surely
Mac,
not. Surely
Mac,
the fruit's in the pudding. What we just watched.
Max had one possession in the third quarter. One.
He was off the bench for a big chunk of it. That was my example. We don't win that game if Heath plays. Max, if Heath plays, that means that if Max rucks for that entire last quarter, that's what he did. Max does for the entire – where does Heath go? Heath plays no other position on the ground. His only position he can play is ruck. He's not good enough forward. Heath sits on the pine for the last quarter. Then we do not have another player who can rotate and give Sharp, Langdon, all of those runners a chop out. We lose that game. Heath plays, we lose that game. There's no doubt in my mind at all. I'm amazed that you could think that was,
I just looked at what was produced and
Maxie played 100% of the last quarter, wouldn't it? And that means,
and thank goodness he was able to do that. Like I said, if we'd lost that game, we'd be having a different conversation. But it didn't happen, so it doesn't really matter.
I don't even know why we're arguing about, because King, we all rate King as a coach. Like, he's the one making the decision. So it's not like, for instance, my thing with Heath is some magic thinking. I'm just supporting the coach's decision. And in the biggest game of the season where we have to win it, he has a choice of choosing Heath and not choosing Heath. Honestly, Occam's razor is that he didn't choose Heath because we needed the running power and we would lose running power if he did. Otherwise, he would have picked Heath. Heath was fit and ready to go. So, I'll run with the coach's call on that. And that's why Salo's in the side. So, I think he's a chance of playing this week for that reason, but not again. So,
all right. There was one question.
Agree to disagree on that one, Sean.
Yep. There was one question that I overlooked. Was from Go D's. There have been other games, especially against weaker sides, where we almost wound down in the second half. Is there some actual system happening with all this to conserve energy or something? And if so, what particularly are the players doing? Last year seemed so different, where we let so many leads slide. Thoughts on that one? It's an interesting one.
Well, I think what we're saying, I think we're way fitter than we were last season. I thought we would let leads slide because we weren't fit enough last year. Simple as that. And you watch Suns, it's the issue for the Suns is that if you're not, fitness is the number one, injury and fitness and ability to run out games. I think we're heaps fitter than we were last year. We have been doing not so much running down. We have been conserving energy. We didn't in this match because we didn't have a choice, but I thought we controlled the last 4 or 5 minutes brilliantly. I thought we were fantastic. The short answer is last year we seemed so different where we lost many leads slide. I think it's because we weren't as fit as we needed to be at the elite level. We are this year. And if you listen to King, he talks a lot about our running power. I've never heard a coach talk about his high performance team and program as much as King does. There's all that talk, as I said at the beginning of the season, that I saw him talk at an event where he said, when asked about, actually it was Guerra, said that when asked to, give an opinion about our list, he said, I can't tell you until I've seen the GPS number. Now, maybe that's already moved into urban myth territory or whatever. But nonetheless, I think it just emphasises how significant running power is and fitness therefore is. And I think that's why we've been able to win these games, partly mainly because of our fitness, but also I think they've done a great job with resilience, haven't they? Like how often has he talked about it where we don't, even now commentators are talking about it, is we make mistakes, go again. You get 3 goals down, don't turn your toes up, keep fighting back and getting the next goal. And that was partly why the game on Saturday was so thrilling. And so I felt so proud because I don't know about you, George, I never felt at any point that the game was beyond us. I was worried, of course, when they got out, but at no point did I feel like, and I reckon even in the last 2-3 years, there's heaps of games where even though I thought we're the better team, I was worried when, we missed shots and all of that stuff. And often it turned out to be the case. So, I think fitness is the main driver of that.
Totally agree. I mean, pre-season and when King was first appointed, he made the point, we're going to play exciting football, we're going to be scoring 100 points a game, and the only way you do that, and we saw that in the pre-season training sessions, it was just run, 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 run. And when you've got that fitness, particularly towards the end of the game and towards the end of the season as well, especially given the fixturing with no bye until round 16, you needed to be very fit, and we don't give up in games, and we last it out, and that's become the big factor, certainly compared to last year. So totally agree with that. And when you start winning games like this one in the last 4 and 6 minutes of the game against the top side, that does build your resilience. Yeah. It's almost like Collingwood was a couple of years ago. They never ever gave up, and it got them over the line time and time again, because no game is beyond your reach, no matter what the opposition does.
And that goes to the importance of knitting all of the wins together. So you think back to our brilliant win over Brisbane. It was similar. It was guts and determination. And even the win against the Suns in the early part of the season, they all knit together you can see the team have a real belief. And then it goes into the fans and crowd, doesn't it? Like we believed, and it becomes like a virtuous cycle of sort of positive energy, and that's what it felt like. Just quickly, you mentioned the round 16 bye. I said earlier in the season that maybe that'll be a silver lining in terms of if we can get through and not be hurt too much by the fact that our bye's late in the season. Maybe it will actually give us an advantage over our competitors, because you mentioned how fresh we looked. That's at least part of I think that we were able to have a bye so late in the season in terms of what they could plan to do after that. So they, no doubt did a big block of training there, and now we're feeling the tapering benefit of it now. So, maybe that will end up being a super positive thing now that we've got through it, and top 6 looks more likely than not.
So we've got Port Adelaide coming up this week over in Adelaide. Thoughts on the game for a start, including ins and outs, if you want to?
I mean, I haven't obviously got sort of started preparing yet for the preview. In terms of head-to-head, it's 25-17 at the venue. We do pretty well at Adelaide Oval. 5-4 is the head-to-head at the venue.
Yeah, it's a very similar size ground to the MCG, so I think it suits and it's a beautiful surface as well.
I agree. Yeah. In terms of the ratings, Wheelo's ratings, the overall, this is probably where it's at, is overall our rating is 10.9, theirs is negative 9.9, so almost 20-point difference in the ratings. That's made up of defensively, we're plus 1.5, and it's interesting, we're still giving up 100 points, but attacking, we're plus 9.4, they're negative 10.9 for attacking. Their defense is pretty strong, they're plus 1, so not much, not far away from our defensive rating. But, our ability to put the score on the board stresses every team that we play. For attack, for instance, we're averaging 99.1 per game. They're averaging 78.2, 28 points differential. That's massive. So it's one of those tricky games. Their best rated player is Zach Butters, who's unfortunately
he's not there.
He's not there, and I think I read on Demonland that it's been sort of all but announced that he won't play. Is that right?
I think that was the feeling. He's only got potentially 2 games to go to the end of the season, but he won't be playing. No.
Yeah, and then you look down, their second highest rated player. So Zach Butters in his 17 matches is 18, so up there with Maxi. There's a big drop off to the next one, which is Horn Francis, 13.1.
Who also may not be playing.
Oh, really? What's up with him?
I did a knee in the last quarter against Sydney.
Oh, did he?
Right, hyperextended the knee. So depending on the amount of damage that might have been done, but even if he hasn't done much damage, I doubt that he'll be 100% this game.
Yeah, right. Well, so maybe their top 2 rated players for the season are not playing. Next is their top 5, 6 are Willem Drew, Alex Van Wyk, whatever, Jordan Sweet and Alir.
I wouldn't put too much on Van Wyk. That was his first game last week.
Oh, there you go. I was trying to have Van Wyk. There you go. His first game of footy, not a bad game of footy, 11.8 for the game. So, on paper, we should win this game. they're dangerous games, though, aren't they? Just, of course, this is where we need Andy's MFCSS to really.
I thought for a moment you had it.
Yeah, well, it's always there. It's like my standing joke. It's like cold sores; they never quite go away. Like the herpes virus stays in your system, ready to raise its head. So. Look, we should win. I feel like our belief in where we're going is just absolutely rock solid. We can't afford to, take this any way lightly. Of course, though, the sort of I actually think Heath will play, for instance, and it'll be interesting whether that is sort of viewed as some sort of like resting or managing or whatever. I actually think that there's a chance that there will be a number of changes, in part to make sure that we're as fresh as possible and take that opportunity. Maybe it's just simple as Heath in for this game. Look, we should win it. I don't know what the weather. Do you know what the weather is going to be like?
I haven't looked
at that. Of rain as
the worst has gone through. We hope.
Yeah, it's hitting here now. So we should win it. And even though it's on their home. Like I said before, often the teams that have got final chances, they keep rolling through to the finals. The teams that don't, as I was talking before we came on, the teams that don't have finals as an opportunity, what are the players don't want to get injured, do they? Just before, they want to make sure that they have a good preseason for the next season. They've got nothing to play for. We've got everything to play for. So we should just win. It doesn't mean that I won't be nervous as I'll get out next Saturday night and concerned. They've played some great footy this year, Port. I've watched a few of their games. They won a lot of their quarters. I think on the few weeks ago they were, I think, a third or fourth or fifth or something on most quarters won ladder, which is a stat that coaches put a lot of stock in and talk about their players to a lot as a way of showing improvement. And so I think but you take out Butters, Horne-Francis, take out the two best players and it drops away a fair bit. So all things being equal, we've got the motivation and I think, we'll attack the game in the right spirit. One of the things, I don't know about you, but one of the things I've been really impressed with King is that he's, he only really, if you think about it, only 2 games this season, Essendon and the Giants, could you accuse the players of not coming ready to play? And so I don't see there being much risk of us getting ahead of ourselves. And I don't. And so I feel like that he's been great at getting the boys right to play footy, if that makes sense. And I think this week will be yet another example of that. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think Porter and Real, well, there's no incentive whatsoever for them to put in 100% almost in this game. If Horne-Francis doesn't play, then they simply haven't got a midfield. It's Wines and that's it. Georgiadis was out against Sydney with illness, so that's their main avenue up forward.
That was up there, wasn't it? Up in Sydney?
That was up there, yeah. And but Georgiadis has been their main reason for kicking goals. They don't have too many others. The other thing that was interesting, this Grundy didn't play for Sydney, and they had so Port Adelaide had Sweet and Van Wyck doing the rucking, and Visentini, who was their normal second ruck, he played full forward, obviously to replace Georgiadis. They lost by nearly 100 points with no Grundy against Sydney. It was 70 to 167 or something was the final score. So they're in a whole world of pain. No Rosie, no Butters, potentially no Jake Horne-Francis. I just don't know how they're going to kick a score.
I think, as you said, the key for a team, for all teams really, is that so much is in the psych space, isn't it? And but I think the key is what you just said, is what have they got to play for, and what do we have to play for? And we've got a lot to play for, and they've got a play for avoiding injury. They, who wants to get injured at this point of the year? Just looking now at the forecast for Saturday night in Adelaide. Oh no, that's Melbourne. That's not going to do as much, is it? Have you watched many of their games this season?
Occasional games, yeah. I look at the end of the day, Port Adelaide will always provide you with a contest. They never give up on a game, so you can expect to. It's not going to be a walkover by any stretch. You wouldn't think so, anyhow.
No.
Well, mind you, losing by 100 points one week isn't the best.
Yeah, no, yeah,
but yeah. So we should win this. We have to win this on paper.
Yeah, we have to win it. That's the thing. We have to win it on paper, but also we don't want this. They're front runners or anything like that. So just looking at the forecast, and now I've got it up, is that the day is bright periods with a passing shower or two, but at night, low winds, very probability of precipitation 7%. So looks like a perfect night for footy.
Perfect night for footy.
13-kilometre winds, no rain, perfect. So that's a big tick for us, because you don't want that Richmond Adelaide game you mentioned. I watched a bit of that just because I was hoping Richmond would beat Adelaide, and it was it rained, and it really tested the sort of mettle, I think, of Adelaide's desire. They did well to get over the top of them in the end, but percentage is going to be an issue for them. And it was a sort of scrappy game, but it's great that this one's going to be dry. It takes one sort of variable off the table, I think. So, I'm pretty confident we'll win, but as I said, it won't change my nervousness ahead of the game.
And since we both get this wrong every week, ins and outs.
I think Heath will come in. And so out. Were there any injuries? We didn't have any injuries, did we? So that was the other positive. No injuries. I think Heath will come in, actually. I know that because I think they'll give Maxi 60% time on ground or something like that, and allow him to sit on the pine, essentially. Who comes out in that scenario? Maybe Salo. Maybe like Laurie was the one. It was either, if you brought in Heath last week, leaving aside our debate about the sort of efficacy of doing so, you'd think that it would have either been Laurie or Salo coming out, given on their previous performances. Well, Laurie's just taken him off the board. I would have thought he was fantastic. So he's not coming out, is he? So maybe Heath for Salem is the only change. But, do the big questions are, I can't see. XL needs another game of footy, doesn't he?
Especially since he wasn't able to play at Casey last week.
Which is so frustrating that they couldn't have done that. And the only other player, it depends a bit. Do you think they'll stick with Jeffo?
I don't know, it's Kentfield kicked 5 the previous time they played, but again,
that was 3 or something the week before.
He's been in reasonable, but drops in and out of games. But then so does Jeffo.
But the thing is, going back to the difference though, is Kentfield can't do the running that Jeffo does. And I know I'm banging on about it, but it's just lost by so many footy fans how important it is. It's like it's just fundamental to it. Almost doesn't matter how many kicks or whatever. If Kentfield can't do it, then he's not going to be able to replace Jeffo. But they can mix things around, for instance. They could bring So what's your predicted changes? Not you should think, but what you think they will do.
I think those two are the two that I think they're the real possibilities. The other one is Latrell.
Yeah, Latrell could.
Yeah. But again, because he didn't play last week, I would have thought that he was an option for this week.
Yeah.
Again,
The other one is, I thought if I was forecasting a few weeks ago, the obvious one to come out in the end when we're getting closer to our best 23 available, which is awesome, is Fitzgerald coming out. But, geez, he's taken himself off the table as well, hasn't he?
He's not coming out by any stretch.
A couple of goals he set up were awesome. And I got something about him that I'm trying to remember who he reminds. Not Brett Lovett. He reminds me of that sort of player. I'm trying to think back to that time.
Glenn Lovett.
Yeah, Glenn Lovett. The way he used to sort of – he doesn't look like an elite athlete, or he just plays good footy, but also is super competitive. And if something goes wrong, he butters up next time and goes doubly as hard. And he's got much better kicking skills than I'd given him credit for. That kick he laced out to your man Petty on the lead from a centre square, one of our 33 points from centre square bounce was him bloody hitting Petty on the lead, lacing him out I went, whew, that's so he's not coming out. So
he's just getting better every week.
He's just getting better every week. So you can't squeeze them all in. The one player I've probably got a little bit of he's not coming out of our best 23, but a little bit of a concern on his form has dropped off a fair bit. His Chin. He's not being nearly as impactful for about 6 weeks, and then he broke his thumb or something or other. And he was okay in this match. Like, that goal he kicked was excellent time in terms of from a beautiful pass from Colt, I might add. Oh, just magnificent. Well, how do you see where he's at?
I don't think he's going to drop out yet. Coming back again from those couple of weeks with the broken hand, that makes a big difference. We saw when Oliver was playing with us, when he had a broken hand, how his whole game dropped off considerably. Now he's the hand is probably more critical to Oliver than perhaps to Chin.
Yeah,
but, it makes it really hard when you're trying to get the ball in the fur, or you're in a contest situation, if you're reticent about sticking the hand in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say that in the context of he's our 4th highest rated player this season, and for ages was our 3rd highest rated player, and his average is something like has dropped down to 16. His last few games have been around the 10 mark, which is what has brought it down. So, that's a positive in the sense we've got a lot of upside for some of those players. So, do you think Heath will get selected this week?
Yeah, I really would like to see Max get a proper break in that sense. And, if they're playing Van Wyk and Sweet and Vizentini in the same side, they've almost got 3 ruckmen available.
Yeah.
So, we'll wait and see. Okay, finally, just a reminder to everyone, all the Demon Lane listeners, there's an AFLW game for Melbourne against Hawthorn this week at Icon Park on Thursday night at 7:15. So once again, get along there and support the girls.
Just before you go on, George, doing such a great job hosting. I blended you two in Jandy. Are you going?
Oh, yeah. Yep, I'll be there.
All right, so will I be. So we'll meet I'll be the one with the red and blue jumper on and the rose in my hair, George. So the outer wing where we've been previously for that game.
Yeah, that's a good place to go.
All right. Yep. So on the old concrete stand there at Princess Park, I love it. So I'll be there for sure. I can't wait, actually. I really can't wait. I haven't, just partly because it's not been promoted or it's woeful, isn't it? It does my head in. I know that's a bigger question. So just, in a short go, I guess, is what's your feeling about where we're at in terms of our chances winning a flag in the AFLW?
Still worried about North Melbourne. They haven't lost anything. And they are the benchmark. I mean, they've won the premiership the last couple of years. It's not surprising. But we're certainly in there and competitive. The advantage that Adelaide in particular had until Port Adelaide came into the competition has disappeared now, so they're not as much of a threat. We'll get a good idea against Hawthorn. They've got a reasonably good side as well, but we've got a really skillful side, which is sort of a bit different. More North Melbourne tend to be a bit more physical. So it'll be interesting to see how we front up against Hawthorn, who've also got a couple of physical players as well. But
I'm really looking forward to it. We haven't talked about it on the pod, but again, we're not time now. But I love the Australia versus speaking of woefully promoted. I really love that game, and you could see the energy in the crowd. It felt great. That I would have loved if that was in Melbourne. Imagine if that was at Optus Oval or somewhere in the Irish in Melbourne would have been going bananas.
Absolutely. There was an interesting point made by one of the commentators after the game. It was great that they played it at North Sydney Oval because it's small.
Yeah.
So the game
really
was
small.
Yeah, the game was fantastic because it didn't have, wide open spaces that were empty.
Yeah.
There was something going on at all times during the game. So, I wish they'd promote it. Even the club, please put the girls' training times on there, please. We've asked them. I know the CEO was asked last week to put it on, but we're yet to see it. So please do it.
And it really isn't good enough, to be honest, and nor is the AFL. Like, they're going to kill the golden goose. Like, it is the future for participation in AFL. It's what's going to women playing and girls playing at high rates of participation is what's going to ward off soccer, for instance.
Yep.
It's going to, if the AFL can't see that, then it's just another reason why they're failing in their job of being stewards of this game. And, yet another governance thing we've got now with Drummond and all of that concussion stuff. And, it's just like, could they be more of a schmozzle at the moment? It's unbelievable. So I can't wait. And I'm really keen for us to beat North Melbourne this year. I've got a new grumble against Libby Birch. She seems to really dislike Melbourne Footy Club, and so
She does. I'll tell you why separately when we meet up at the game.
All right. Okay. Well, that can be item number 1 on our agenda on Thursday night, George.
No, we won't do it publicly.
Oh, well, no, not here at the footy. I mean,
at the footy,
the footy. Great. So I look forward to seeing you and as many Demon fans who can get along. I think if fans support the AFLW team, then the club hopefully will follow. It's super exciting that that's getting going now too.
Excellent. All right. Thank you to Binman. Thank you to all our listeners. Thanks for the questions from Wells11, Go Lordy, Pates, D-Star9, Demon WA, Go D's, and Doug Reamer. And thanks for the comments from Sam D, Travi14, What Say What, Heath55, Melbourne Man 2, Farmer. See you all next week. Hopefully, Andy, if you're listening, you're getting better. So we want you back as soon as possible. So go D's.
Go Red Leggers.
It's a grand old flag. It's a high-flying flag. It's an emblem for me and for you. Well, it's the emblem of the team we love. The team of the red and the blue. Well, every heart beats true for the red and the blue. As we sing a song for you. Should old acquaintance be forgot? Keep your eye on the red and the blue. Where the team played fine in the year 39. We're the team that no one can lick. And you'll find us there after the final bell with the spirit of 1926. Every heart beats true for the red and the blue. As we friends sing this song to you. Should old acquaintance be forgot? Keep your